In the far future, the stars were no longer a mystery. Humans had spread across galaxies, living on cold rocks and lonely moons. But even with all their machines, their shining cities, and their powerful ships, people were still lonely. Ethan Cole was one of them. He worked as a mechanic on a mining colony at the edge of known space. The place was quiet, filled with the sound of engines and drills. Every day was the same. Fix the machines, eat the same food, sleep in the same metal room. There was no laughter here, no family, no friends. Only silence and the cold wind that blew across the dusty planet. Ethan had once dreamed of adventure, of meeting people from other worlds. But years passed, and all he had were long nights and old memories of Earth. One evening, as the red sun sank below the horizon, he sat alone in his cabin, staring at the glowing screen in front of him. A message flashed on it. Intergalactic companions, we connect hearts across the stars. He had seen the ad before. It promised companionship for lonely colonists, partners from any world, chosen by a perfect match system. Ethan had always ignored it. But tonight the silence felt too heavy. He sighed, rubbed his eyes, and clicked the message. A warm female voice spoke through the speaker. "Welcome, Ethan Cole. We see you have been alone for 312 days. Would you like to change that?" Ethan laughed quietly. "Guess even the computer feels sorry for me." He scrolled through the application. It asked about his personality, his habits, his dreams. He answered half-heartedly, not believing it would matter. At the end, it said, "Processing genetic and emotional data. Match found." Ethan blinked. Already? The screen showed a shadowy outline of a woman. The details were hidden, but her profile said, female, age 27, equivalent, physical compatibility, 98%, emotional match, 94%. Delivery in 5 days, the voice said softly. Ethan shook his head. This is insane. Still, he pressed confirm. 5 days later, a shuttle appeared in the gray sky. The colony workers gathered at the landing pad, curious. Ethan stood at the front, his hands shaking slightly. The air shimmered with heat as the shuttle touched down. Steam hissed from its sides and the heavy doors began to open. He expected a human woman to step out. Maybe shy, maybe nervous. Someone small and quiet, like him. But what stepped out of the fog made everyone freeze. A tall figure appeared, at least twice Ethan's height. Her skin shimmered like silver under the red sun, and her eyes glowed a calm blue. She wore a strange suit of armor that looked both organic and metallic, like it was part of her body. She looked around slowly, scanning the humans who stared in shock. Her gaze finally stopped on Ethan. "You are Ethan Cole," she said, her voice deep yet gentle. "I am Ari Cora. You are mine," the crowd whispered. Some laughed nervously, others backed away. Ethan could not move. He stuttered, "This must be a mistake. I mean the agency." She tilted her head, studying him. Then she took one step forward. The ground shook lightly under her weight. She bent down, bringing her glowing eyes level with his. "No mistake," she said. "You called. I came." Her breath was warm and strange, carrying a scent of metal and flowers. Ethan's heart pounded. One of the workers muttered, "That's no companion, man. That's a war machine." Arikora turned her head sharply, her eyes flashing. "I am no machine," she said coldly. "I am alive." The man stepped back quickly, frightened. Ethan looked around. Everyone was staring at him now, waiting to see what he would do. He swallowed hard. "Arikora, maybe we should go inside. Talk." "Away from everyone." She nodded once, straightening to her full height. "As you wish, Ethan Cole." As they walked toward his small living quarters, Ethan's mind raced. How could this happen? The agency promised perfect emotional matches, so why send him a giant alien warrior? Inside his cabin, Arikora stood still, looking around the small room. The ceiling was barely high enough for her. She brushed against the light and ducked slightly. "This is your home," she said quietly. "It is. Small. Fragile." Ethan sighed. "Yeah, like everything else here." For a moment, neither spoke. The air felt heavy again, but different, like something powerful was hidden beneath the silence. Finally, Ethan asked, "You're not from Earth, are you?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "No. I am from Zakara. My people once fought yours." Ethan froze. Fought? The Zakaran War? That was decades ago. "Yes," she said softly. "And I was created after. For peace. Or so they said." He didn't understand. Not yet. But something in her voice made him believe there was more to this than a simple mail-order mistake. Outside, the wind howled through the colony. Machines hummed. The stars above flickered cold and far. Ethan looked at her again, this strange, silver-skinned woman who called herself his, and in her glowing blue eyes, he saw something both terrifying and lonely. He didn't know it yet, but that night would change not only his life, but the future of two worlds. The next morning, the red sun rose over the mining colony, painting the dusty sky in orange light. Ethan barely slept. All night he could hear the soft hum of Arikora's breathing from the corner of his small room. She didn't need a bed. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed, glowing faintly blue like two small moons. When she finally opened them, Ethan flinched. "You did not rest," she said quietly. He rubbed his eyes. "Hard to rest when there's an 8-foot alien warrior in your room." She tilted her head, curious. "Do I frighten you?" Ethan hesitated. "A little. You're not what I expected." Arikora stood up, her movements smooth, powerful, yet graceful. "Expectation is a fragile thing," she said. "Reality breaks it easily." Ethan watched as she looked around his cabin again, at the rusted tools, the flickering light, the small framed photo of Earth on his desk. She picked it up carefully between her long metallic fingers. "This is your world," she said. "My home," Ethan replied. "Or it used to be." She studied the picture like it was a sacred thing. "So blue," she murmured. "So alive." Ethan was surprised by the softness in her voice. For a being who looked like a weapon, she sounded almost human. Later, they walked through the colony. People stared, some whispered. Others stayed away pretending to work, while watching her from the corners of their eyes. Arikora seemed not to notice, or maybe she simply didn't care. When a small robot rolled by, she crouched beside it, touching its metal shell gently. "This one has no soul," she said. "It's just a mining bot," Ethan explained. "They dig rocks." Her eyes flickered with sadness. "Machines without choice, like me." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean, like you?" She looked at him for a long time before answering. "I was made, not born. My body is part metal, part flesh. My mind was built to serve." Her voice dropped lower. "But I broke free." Ethan stopped walking. "Broke free? From who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the mountains, her gaze distant. "Freedom has a price. You cannot imagine how heavy it is." Ethan wanted to ask more, but before he could, a loud beeping came from his wrist communicator. The colony's main computer flashed a red warning. "Error. Communication signal blocked. External link disabled." "What the hell?" he muttered, tapping the screen. "The system's dead. No outgoing signals." He ran back to the control room, Arikora following silently behind. Inside, every monitor showed the same red message. He tried resetting the network, but the controls didn't respond. Then on the screen, strange blue symbols began to appear, symbols he didn't recognize. He turned to her. "Arikora, did you do this?" She didn't deny it. "Yes." Ethan froze. "Why? That's our only link to other colonies." "I blocked it," she said calmly. "For your safety." "My safety? You're cutting us off from the entire system." Her blue eyes glowed brighter. You do not understand. They will come for me. If they find me, they will destroy this place and you with it. Ethan took a step back. Who are they? She looked away. The Makers. Humans. He felt cold all over. You mean my people? Yes, she whispered. You created me. You made my kind, but we were too strong, too different, so you tried to erase us. Ethan's mouth went dry. That's impossible. I would have known. She turned toward him suddenly, her expression sharp. Would you? Humans hide their sins under pretty words. Peace. Progress. Protection. They made us slaves and called it science. The words hit him hard. He wanted to deny it, to tell her she was wrong. But deep inside, he knew the human government had many secrets. Why me, then? He asked quietly. Why come to me? She stepped closer, her shadow falling over him. Because you are not like them. You still feel. Her hand rose slowly, touching his chest just above his heart. Her fingers were warm, surprisingly soft despite the metallic skin. I saw your loneliness. I followed the signal of your call. It reached my ship. You wished for someone to understand you. I wished for the same. Ethan's throat tightened. The silence between them grew heavy again, filled with something strange, fear, confusion, maybe even connection. Outside, the colony's alarm lights began to blink. Someone had noticed the blocked communications. Voices echoed through the speakers, shouting orders. System failure. Check for sabotage. Ethan looked at her. They'll think I did this. Arikora's eyes dimmed to a deep blue. Then we must prepare. The hunters will come soon. He stared at her, not understanding what she meant. But in that moment, as the alarms wailed and the colony workers ran through the dust, Ethan felt his quiet, lonely life shatter completely. He didn't know if Arikora was his protector or his doom, but one thing was certain: she wasn't just a mail-order bride. She was something far greater, and far more dangerous. And deep in the sky above them, a silent transmission flickered through the stars. Target located. Prepare retrieval. The colony was no longer calm. Red lights flashed through the metal halls and warning sirens echoed like distant thunder. Ethan ran through the corridors, his heart racing. Every screen he passed showed the same alert. Unauthorized signal detected. System lockdown engaged. He knew who had done it, Arikora, but he didn't understand why. He reached the control center, breathing hard. The main console was glowing faint blue now instead of red. Strange alien symbols were crawling across the display like living creatures. Ethan slammed his hand on the panel. Computer, restore manual control. No response. Behind him, a soft, calm voice spoke. You should not shout at machines. They only listen to code. Ethan turned sharply. Arikora stood in the doorway, tall and silent, her glowing eyes watching him. He clenched his fists. You shut us off from the network. Do you realize what you've done? If headquarters thinks we're compromised, they'll send security ships. She walked closer, the lights flickering as she passed. They were already coming, she said. My presence made it certain. Ethan glared at her. You keep saying that, why? Who are you really, Arikora? You said you were made, but made by who? She looked at him quietly for a moment, then walked to the console. Her hand hovered over the blue light. If you wish to know, she said, I will show you. Before Ethan could stop her, she pressed her palm against the surface. The symbols twisted, rearranging themselves into video logs. A hologram flickered to life above the console, static-filled but clear enough. It showed a laboratory. Humans in white coats stood around a glowing pod. Inside the pod was a large figure, part human, part metal, floating in a strange blue liquid. A voice spoke from the recording. Project Harmony. Subject, AR-7 Cora. DNA source, human. Enhancement, Zakaran genome. Purpose, emotion control and combat efficiency. Status active. Ethan's stomach turned cold. That's you. Yes, Arikora said softly. A weapon with a human heart. The hologram showed her opening her eyes in the pod for the first time. The scientist cheered. Then another clip appeared. Ari Kora being tested, fighting metal drones, lifting heavy machines, her face emotionless. Then came a darker moment. She was on her knees, surrounded by guards with weapons. One scientist shouted, "Shut her down!" She's thinking for herself. Ethan couldn't look away. The image froze on Ari Kora's face. Calm, but with a tear rolling down her silver cheek. The recording ended. The room went silent. Ethan's voice shook. "They used you." Ari Kora looked at him. "Yes, they built us to obey. But something inside me broke free. I began to dream. I began to feel." He swallowed hard. "So you escaped." "I fled in one of their ships," she said. "They hunted me. I followed the signals of human networks, searching for a voice that didn't sound cruel." "That voice was yours." Ethan stepped back slowly, overwhelmed. "So you didn't come from any agency. You came because of me." "Yes," she said. "You sent out a request for love. I sent back a signal for freedom." Her eyes dimmed slightly. "We met in the static." Ethan sat down, his hands trembling. He didn't know what to say. Everything felt unreal. The mining colony, the machines, even the air around him seemed to fade under the weight of her words. He whispered, "If they find you here, they'll kill you." "And you?" she replied. "You helped me without knowing. That is enough for them to call you a traitor." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "This is insane. I just wanted someone to talk to, not to start a war." Her expression softened. "You did not start it. You only joined it." The alarm lights flickered again. This time the sound changed, a deep pulse that echoed through the colony's walls. Ethan knew that sound. It was a signal from orbit. He ran to the window. Far above the dusty sky he saw them, dark shapes cutting through the clouds. "Human military ships, they're here," he said. Ari Kora's eyes flashed bright. "Too soon. I thought we had more time." Ethan turned to her. "You said they'll destroy this place?" "Yes," she said. "To hide what they made." He looked around the control room, his home for years, his quiet life of routine and dust. Now it was all burning away under the weight of secrets he never asked for. "What do we do?" he asked. She looked at him with steady eyes. "We survive." Outside, the colony's shields flickered to life. Dust swirled. Sirens screamed. And as the first beam of light struck the ground from above, Ethan realized that his lonely wish for companionship had just turned into a battle for both their lives. The sky burned. Flashes of blue light streaked through the clouds as the first human ships broke through the upper atmosphere. Their engines roared like thunder, shaking the fragile mining colony below. Ethan stood near the control tower, staring up, unable to believe what he was seeing. "They found us," he whispered. Ari Kora stood beside him, her silver skin glinting under the storm of lights. Her face was calm, but her eyes glowed brighter, like stars ready to ignite. "They never stop hunting," she said softly. "To them, I am property that escaped." Ethan clenched his jaw. "You're not property. You're alive." Her gaze flicked toward him. For a second, she almost smiled. But then her expression hardened again. "They will not listen to that." A loudspeaker crackled through the colony. "Attention, unauthorized entity detected. This facility is under military quarantine. All personnel must remain in place. Failure to comply will result in termination." The miners froze. No one dared move. Ethan turned to Ari Kora. "If they see you, they'll shoot." She shook her head slowly. "If they see me, they'll take me and erase every trace of this place." She looked toward the hills beyond the colony. "There are tunnels in the mining fields, yes?" "Yes," Ethan said. "Old ones." "Unused for years," she nodded. "Then we go there." The two ran through the metal corridors as alarms blared. Red lights flashed like beating hearts. They passed workers who stared at Ari Kora in fear and wonder. One of them, a grizzled miner, grabbed Ethan's arm. "Who is she?" he shouted. "What did you bring here?" Ethan didn't stop. "Someone who doesn't deserve to die." They burst out into the open. The air was thick with dust and heat from the descending ships. Above, the human fleet formed a dark ring, their lights scanning the ground like searching eyes. Ari Kora led the way toward the old tunnels. Her long strides kicked up dirt, her body moving with the precision of a machine and the grace of a dancer. Ethan followed close behind, clutching a small datapad filled with the control codes she had shown him earlier. When they reached the tunnel entrance, Arikora placed her hand on the metal door. It glowed beneath her touch and opened with a hiss. "Inside," she said. The tunnel was dark and cold. Old mining rails lined the floor and the air smelled of rust. Ethan switched on his wrist light. Arikora didn't need one. Her eyes glowed enough to guide them. "Where do these lead?" she asked. "About 5 kilometers under the colony," Ethan replied. "There's a forgotten maintenance hub down there." "Power still runs through it," she nodded. "Perfect. We can hide there." They moved deeper into the tunnel. The sound of the surface battle grew faint, replaced by the steady drip of water and the hum of old machines. For a moment, it felt almost peaceful. Ethan looked at her. "You said humans made you. But why? What did they want?" Her voice was quiet, echoing softly in the tunnel. "They wanted soldiers who never disobey, hearts that feel love but not fear. They thought emotions could make war easier to control." She looked down at her metallic hands. "But love cannot be controlled. It changes everything it touches." Ethan slowed his steps, watching her. There was a deep sadness in her words, something more painful than anger. "You really feel it, don't you?" he said. "Emotions, not just programming." She met his gaze. "I learned to feel by watching you." Ethan blinked. "Me? Yes," she said. "Your loneliness, your kindness, and your hope. It called to me across the stars." He didn't know what to say. His throat felt tight. Before he could speak, a sharp metallic sound echoed behind them. Clang. Arikora spun around instantly, her eyes flaring bright. From the darkness of the tunnel, a beam of red light cut through the air. It missed Ethan's shoulder by inches and struck the wall, sending sparks flying. "Soldiers!" she shouted. Figures in black armor emerged, their helmets reflecting her glow. "Target confirmed," one of them yelled. "Engage!" Arikora moved like lightning. She grabbed Ethan and pulled him behind a pile of rock. Bullets of plasma burned holes into the tunnel walls. The air filled with heat and smoke. Ethan's heart pounded. "We're trapped." "Not yet," she said. She leaped from cover, her body shimmering with energy. The soldiers fired again, but the bolts bounced off her armor. She reached the first soldier in seconds and slammed him into the wall. The sound was like thunder. Another aimed his weapon at her head. Ethan shouted, "Arikora, look out!" She turned just in time, grabbing the rifle and snapping it in half. With a single swing, she sent the soldier flying across the tunnel. The remaining soldiers retreated, shouting for backup. The echoes of their boots faded into the darkness. Ethan stood shaking, staring at her. "You saved me again." She turned toward him, her chest rising and falling. "We are not safe yet," she said. "They will return with more." Her glowing eyes softened for a moment. "But I will not let them take you." He swallowed hard, realizing how strange and powerful the moment was. A human and an alien weapon hiding together beneath the earth, two beings built for completely different purposes, now bound by something neither of them fully understood. Above them, the hunter fleet circled the skies, preparing to strike again. The tunnels trembled like the world itself was afraid. Dust fell from the ceiling as distant explosions shook the rock. The military fleet had started firing on the surface, turning the colony into a storm of fire and metal. Ethan and Arikora crouched behind an old mining cart, breathing hard. The tunnel lights flickered weakly, fighting against the darkness. "They're bombing the colony," Ethan whispered. "They'll bury us alive down here." Arikora's glowing eyes scanned the tunnel ahead. "Then we must move. There is another exit, an emergency shaft that leads to the old shuttle bay." Ethan nodded, gripping his datapad tightly. "If the shuttle still works?" "It will," she said, her voice calm and sure. "I can fix what's broken." They started running again, their footsteps echoing through the narrow tunnel. Each step felt like a countdown. Above them, the sky burned. Below, the earth groaned. As they ran, Ethan's mind spun with questions. "Arikora," he said between breaths, "if they created you, there must be others like you." "Yes," she replied quietly. "Thousands. But most are gone. Destroyed before they could think." He looked at her, shocked. "Destroyed?" Her voice softened. "They feared us. We were not perfect soldiers. We began to ask why, and that was the one question they would not allow." Ethan slowed for a moment. "So you ran?" "Yes," she said. "I ran to live, to be free. And when I found your signal, I thought, maybe there was one human who would not see me as a weapon." He stared at her, realizing the strange truth. She hadn't come to hurt him. She had come to be understood. They reached the end of the tunnel. A rusted ladder led up toward a faint light above. Arikora climbed first, moving fast despite her size. Ethan followed, his hands shaking. At the top, they pushed open a heavy hatch. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of burning metal. The sky was dark with smoke. The colony below was in ruins, fires glowing in the distance, broken towers, and the remains of ships scattered across the ground. Ethan's chest tightened. All those people, they fired because of me, Arikora said softly. Your people will call it a containment strike. He looked at her. Then we'll make them see the truth. She gave him a small, sad smile. Truth is a fragile thing, Ethan Cole. It breaks easily in the hands of power. They moved through the wreckage toward the old launch site. The shuttle bay stood half buried under collapsed beams. A single small ship. Ethan's repair shuttle was still intact, though its hull was scarred with dust and age. He ran to the controls, wiping soot from the panel. If we can get the power cell running, we can fly out of here. Arikora placed her hand on the engine. A low hum filled the air as blue energy rippled through her body into the ship. The lights flickered, then came alive. Ethan stared. You can do that. I was made to connect with machines, she said. They obey my code. The engines roared weakly, coughing out black smoke. It will hold, she said. For a short flight. Ethan climbed inside, his heart pounding. Where do we go? Arikora looked up at the sky, where the massive fleet glowed like a deadly storm. Anywhere they cannot follow. As they took off, the ground shook again, an explosion tore through the valley below. Ethan gripped the controls, guiding the shuttle through the smoke. Hold on! From above, a military fighter spotted them and broke formation. A bright beam of light sliced through the clouds, aiming straight for them. Arikora stood behind Ethan, eyes burning with blue fire. Turn the ship left, she ordered. He obeyed without question. She raised her hand, and a pulse of pure energy burst from her palm. The beam curved in midair and exploded before it could reach them. The shockwave rocked the shuttle, but they stayed airborne. Ethan turned to her in disbelief. How did you? I was made to fight stars, she said simply. Escaping one ship is not hard. Despite the danger, Ethan almost laughed. Remind me not to make you angry. For the first time, Arikora's lips curved into a small, real smile. Then never lie to me. They soared higher, leaving the burning colony behind. The stars spread out before them, cold, endless, beautiful. But peace didn't last. On the radar, more ships were approaching. They're tracking us, Ethan said. How? We're not even broadcasting a signal. Arikora's eyes darkened. Because they are tracking me. She placed her hand against her chest. The glow under her skin pulsed erratically. They built a beacon inside me. It tells them where I am. Ethan's stomach dropped. You mean, you're a living tracker? Yes, she whispered. To remove it could kill me. He looked at her, determination hardening his voice. Then we'll find a way. We'll cut it out if we have to. Her gaze softened. You would do that? For you? He nodded. I already have nothing left to lose. The shuttle flew into the endless dark. Two fugitives bound by fate. One human who had lost hope, and one creation who had found it in him. Behind them, the hunter fleet regrouped, scanning the void. Ahead of them, a lonely moon waited in the distance, a place to hide, and maybe to begin again. The moon was silent. Ethan's shuttle landed in a sea of gray dust and long shadows. The engines hissed, then went quiet, leaving only the low hum of cooling metal. Outside, the surface stretched endlessly, cold, cracked, and lifeless. Ethan stepped out first, pulling his jacket tight against the chill. Above him, stars glittered like frozen sparks. Behind him, Arikora followed, her silver form glowing softly in the dark. This place is empty, Ethan said, scanning the horizon. No colonies, no signals. We might be safe here. Safe, Arikora repeated, almost whispering, a word humans use before danger returns. Ethan smiled weakly. You really know how to comfort a man, but she wasn't joking. Her eyes were distant, watching the sky as if she could already sense what was coming. They found an abandoned research outpost built into the side of a cliff. The metal doors creaked and the lights flickered weakly when Ethan powered them up. Inside, it smelled of dust and old air. Arikora touched one of the terminals. Human technology, she murmured. Primitive but functional. It'll do, Ethan said. We can stay here until I figure out how to remove that beacon from you. Her glowing eyes met his. You would risk that? He shrugged. You saved my life twice. I think I owe you one. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. Owe me, she said. That is not how I see it. There was a strange quiet between them, something heavy but gentle. Hours passed. Ethan worked with his tools, scanning Arikora's body for the signal. The small med scanner beeped softly, showing a bright pulsing dot near her heart. There, he said. That's the tracker. It's deep, close to your core systems. If I touch it wrong, it could end me, she finished. I know. She lay down on the metal table, her massive form dwarfing the room. Do it anyway. Ethan hesitated. Are you sure? She nodded. Better to die free than live as their signal. He swallowed hard and began. The scanner hummed. He opened a small panel of her armor, revealing silver veins and threads of light beneath. Her body was warm, almost human, yet it hummed like a living engine. Steady, he whispered, his hands trembling. She watched his face quietly. Your heartbeat is faster than mine, she said softly. Yeah, he murmured. Probably because I'm operating on an alien. For a moment, despite everything, she smiled. Then the scanner beeped again, louder this time. The pulsing signal flared. Wait, something's wrong, Ethan said. It's reacting! Before he could pull back, a surge of energy burst from the beacon. The lights flickered, alarms screamed, and Arikora's eyes went wide with shock. Ethan, she gasped. It sent a transmission. What kind of transmission? He shouted, her face darkened. A distress call. They know where we are. Ethan's heart dropped. No, not again. She sat up suddenly, her wounds still open, blue light bleeding from them. You must go, she said. They will come for me. I'm not leaving you. Her voice grew fierce. If they capture you, they will use you against me. You don't understand what they'll do. He grabbed her hand. Then we faced them together. She looked down at their hands, his small and human, hers glowing and immense. You are stubborn, she said softly. Like a soldier of my kind. Before they could argue more, a tremor shook the base. Through the narrow window, Ethan saw light cutting across the moon's horizon. Engines from incoming ships. They're already here, he whispered. Arikora's glow brightened. Then we fight. She rose to her full height, her wounds already closing, blue energy rippling across her armor. Ethan grabbed his small plasma cutter, the only weapon he had. The doors blew open a moment later. Soldiers in black armor poured in, shouting commands. Arikora moved like a storm, swift, silent, deadly. Her hands flashed with energy, throwing soldiers aside like rag dolls. Ethan fired the plasma cutter wildly, trying to help, but there were too many. Then a voice echoed from behind the troops, deep, calm, and human. Stand down, AR-7 Cora. Ethan froze. A tall man stepped through the smoke, wearing a white officer's coat. His face was lined with age, his eyes cold and gray. Who are you? Ethan demanded. The man smiled faintly. Commander Voss, project director of the Harmony Initiative. I made her. Arikora stopped moving, her eyes flickering. You made monsters, she said. No, Voss replied. I made perfection. And you, my dear, are proof of it. He looked at Ethan. You must be the human who answered her call. You were part of the experiment too. Ethan frowned. What are you talking about? Voss smiled coldly. You think her signal just found you? We sent it. You were selected. A lonely colonist, ideal for emotional imprinting. She wasn't escaping. She was following her programming. Ethan stared at Arikora, his voice breaking. That's not true, is it? She looked at him, pain flickering across her face. I don't know. Voss stepped forward. Of course it's true. Every word she spoke, every emotion she felt. It was designed to test how deeply a weapon could love. Ethan's world seemed to shatter. The air felt thin, he whispered. So this was all a lie? Arikora's voice trembled. No, it was real to me. But Voss's soldiers surrounded them, their weapons raised. Take her, Voss ordered. And kill the man. Ethan moved in front of Arikora. You'll have to go through me first. Voss sighed. That can be arranged. As the soldiers closed in, Arikora's glow flared so bright it blinded them all. Her voice rang out, filled with sorrow and rage. No more chains. The ground cracked, and light erupted from her body, swallowing the room in blue fire. The world was light. Blue fire tore through the base, devouring metal, air, and silence. Ethan felt himself thrown backward, heat burning across his skin. For a second, he couldn't hear. only a ringing sound in his ears like the echo of something ancient and powerful. When the light faded, he opened his eyes. The research outpost was gone. The walls were half melted, the floor cracked open, and dust floated in the air like drifting ghosts. Arikora stood in the center of it all, glowing brighter than ever. Her body pulsed with living energy, cracks of blue light running through her silver skin. The soldiers lay scattered around her, unconscious, but alive. Commander Voss stood too, barely, one hand over his face. He stared at her in awe and fear. "You can't stop it, AR-7, Cora. That power will consume you." Arikora's voice was calm, steady. "It was always meant to. I was made to end wars. But I choose how." Ethan struggled to his feet.
"Ari, stop!"
"You'll destroy yourself." She looked at him, and for the first time there was no glow in her eyes, only softness. "Ethan Cole," she said quietly. "You taught me what freedom feels like. Now I must use it." He shook his head. "There has to be another way." But she smiled gently. "No, they built my kind to control every weapon, every fleet. If I release my core, their systems will shut down. The war will end. But the energy will take me with it." Ethan's heart clenched. "Then don't do it." "We'll run. We'll hide again." Her smile faded into sorrow. "How long can one keep running from a galaxy that fears them?" Voss stepped forward, blood on his lip, eyes wild. "You fool! If you trigger your core, you'll paralyze every defense system across the human colonies. You'll leave billions unprotected." Arikora turned her head slightly. "Then perhaps they will learn peace." Voss drew his weapon. "I won't let you." He fired. Ethan moved without thinking. The plasma bolt hit his side, knocking him to the ground. He gasped, pain ripping through him. "Arikora," he cried. Her scream shook the walls. She turned to Voss, her body glowing with fury. "Enough!" A wave of blue light erupted from her, and the commander's weapon melted in his hands. He fell to the ground, terrified. Ethan coughed, clutching his wound. "Arikora, please, don't leave me." She knelt beside him, her massive form trembling. Her hand, warm, alive, touched his cheek. "You gave me more than freedom," she whispered. "You gave me something my makers never understood, choice." He gripped her fingers tightly. "Then choose to live." Her eyes shimmered like the stars outside. "Living is not the same as existing. I would rather die as myself than live as their design." Tears filled his eyes. "I can't lose you." "You never will," she said softly. "Part of me will always remain with you." She leaned closer, their foreheads touching. For a brief silent second, time stopped. There was only warmth, light, and the quiet rhythm of two hearts, one human, one made of stars. Then she rose. Her body lifted slowly off the ground, floating in the air. Energy rippled around her like a storm made of light. The moon's surface began to shake. The distant sky turned blue with fire. Ethan could barely see through the brightness. "Arikora!" he shouted. She looked down one last time. "Goodbye, Ethan Cole." And then, with a flash that split the heavens, she released her core. The explosion was silent. No sound. No shockwave. Just a burst of blue light spreading across the stars like a heartbeat that echoed through the void. Every human fleet ship in orbit went dark. Their engines shut down, their weapons silent. The war machine stopped, frozen in place. On distant worlds, alarms ceased. Battles ended mid-fire. For the first time in decades, the galaxy fell still. When the light faded, Ethan lay on the cold ground, surrounded by quiet. The base was gone. Only dust and a crater remained. He sat up slowly, clutching his injured side. His vision blurred with tears. "Ari?" There was no answer. Only wind moving across the empty moon. Then he saw it, half buried in the dust near where she had stood. A small glowing crystal, soft blue light pulsed inside it, slow and steady like a heartbeat. He picked it up carefully, holding it to his chest, the glow reflected in his eyes. "She's still here," he whispered. Months later, Ethan returned to Earth. The war was over. The government never spoke of the Harmony Project again. Most didn't know why the fleets had fallen silent, but Ethan did. He built a small home near the sea. Every night he would sit by the window, the blue crystal resting on the table beside him. Sometimes, when the wind was quiet, he swore he could hear a faint hum, her voice soft and gentle. "Ethan Cole," it would whisper. "You are not alone." He smiled each time. "I know," he'd say softly. "I never was." Outside, the stars shimmered above the dark ocean. And somewhere beyond them, among the endless lights of the universe, a single pulse of blue energy beat quietly, watching, waiting, remembering.